Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Boardroom 103. So this is the third session of our Boardroom. While we're waiting for other persons to join, I just wish to do some little introduction and appreciate some couple of persons who have made this project a success thus far. One of the persons I want to appreciate the committee, organizing committee, the persons of Korede, Ladejobi. We have Joel, Victor, then some of our key patrons who are Mr. Yinka, Akintayo, and Sheriff Babatunde. And I want to thank you all for the support and pushing this thing forward as we are making progress to make this a continuous program that we have every month. Then I want to appreciate the discussant for the month, and I want to thank Mr. Chike Oputa for giving his time out of his task schedule. Same goes to Mr. Ugochukwu Oborgu. Also want to thank you, sir, for making time to join. And I don't know if Mr. Yusuf Bello is here yet. If he's not here yet, so we're trying to reach out to him to join on time as one of the discussants. Also, want to appreciate him in advance if he's not yet here. Then our moderator, Chinonso Atuegwu, and I want to thank you for your time also. You also participated in the last session, and it was an interesting one. So you have to moderate this time around. I want to thank everyone for coming through, and I will ask if we are to start, because we know that the discussants are very busy persons, which while we're trying to get the third person to join, we can start off so that we don't kill the time of our discussants this today. And also, I will leave the floor for Nonso to take over while we're waiting for the last person to join. Nonso?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kingsley, and thank you everybody for joining, and welcome to the very third edition of the Boardroom. For some of us who are joining for the first time, so I'll just throw a bit of light on what this is about. So the Boardroom is an initiative of the OH Academy. So this is where we say to ourselves, how to go practice in Nigeria the way it's been run, if we're happy about it and not, what are the changes, and most importantly is a knowledge sharing section for us. So we bring people who are seasoned in the business to come speak to us on issues that bother around taking the industry forward. So thank you everybody once again. We've had 2 editions before now. This edition, our topic basically is around the changing out of home, the changing behavior of our typical consumer on the road. So it's important for us to explain this consumer, understand how their behaviors are changing, as well as also carve way forward for our clients, so we can draft winning proposals for them. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining today. We are already kicking off already, so I think others will join us in the way. So let me just quickly introduce people who will be hearing from today. So it's an honor to be asking questions to this. I will call them OGs. Some of us who joined this industry 8 to 9 years ago. When we came into the industry, these are names we were hearing as big names already in the industry. And so today, they are still waxing very strong. I will start from someone who I'm not sure is already online, but I will introduce him in case he joins anytime soon. We're talking of no other person than Bello Yusuf. Bello is a seasoned out-of-home practitioner. I met him as the head of marketing for Global Outdoor Limited, and currently Bello leads trade marketing at the Lakasera company. Bello is very seasoned. He knows out-of-home and marketing as a whole, in and out. So Bello, I don't know if Bello is on the call yet. If Bello can hear me, say hello.
I'm right here. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Bello, and thanks for joining us. The next other person I want to introduce would be Ugo Oborgu. Ugo is one of the names I also heard as very established people when I just joined the industry. Ugo, I knew Ugo when he was leading media and communications for Airtel, but currently Ugo is the managing director and CEO and founder of Audience and Brands, one of Nigeria's foremost out-of-home service providers. Ugo, thank you for joining.
Thank you very much for having me.
And the last but not the least, my own personal Oga of the matter. He's a trained lawyer. He's a lawyer by training. He's an ex-banker. He's been around for a very long time, been to some of the best marketing communication agencies in Nigeria. He championed out-of-home monitoring in Nigeria as well. And currently, he's the cluster MD of a group of companies within the Densu Ages community business. He leads Densu X, he leads Densu Red Star, and he also leads Rapid Extra. I'm talking of no other person than Chike Oputa. Chike, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. So we'll just quickly go right into it. But before we do go into the discourse for today, over the past few editions, we've been having conversations around the industry, where the industry is at the moment, how far we've come. So it would be good to hear from you OGs. What would be your fair assessment of the industry as it is at the moment, where we're coming from and where we are now? Just briefly before we go into the topic of the day. I'll start with Chike.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So I will try to discuss where we are as an industry from understanding what the dynamics are from an industry point of view and what factors are influencing and driving competition, which ultimately affects profitability. So we are presently in an industry with very low barrier to entry. That means that anybody and everybody can, get into the industry. Our clients have choice. They can buy from A to B, C. So we have an economic situation, or rather, a situation whereby you have supply almost outstripping demand. So what this means that the general industry profitability will be affected because you have too many vendors as opposed to limited advertisers. So the long-term prognosis for the industry is such that we expect that profitability will be affected as more and more players get into the sector. Advertisers have more power, regulatory agencies charge more money, and you have a clustered and saturated subsector.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chike. So I'll move straight to Ugo. Ugo, when Chike was speaking, I picked up something about the industry having a very, very relatively low barrier to entry. So it's an all-comers affair. So in your opinion, is this a plus or a challenge for the industry where anybody can just come into the industry and practice? So Ugo, I want to hear what you think about the satisfaction of yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a description of limitations and weakness in terms of knowledge. Because where you have an industry that anybody can walk in and walk out, that means that the knowledge, which was of course supposed to be the decider of that entry, is actually. And if, for instance, the suppliers, like he said, are not coordinated enough to be able to say that this is the minimum standard in terms of operational requirements, then anybody can walk in and walk out. And I think that's not good enough for the industry. You can't claim to be a lawyer when you've not been called to bar. You cannot be a doctor when you've not gone to medical school. But advertising is a piece where whether you are qualified in terms of the experiences and knowledge, as long as you have the money, you can as well run an agency. I think that is not good enough. And that, of course, is why the advertisers find it very easy to, of course, decide on what should be done or shouldn't be done. So perhaps in the course of this conversation, we'll begin to dissect how this has also affected the quality of output in terms of productivity and service messaging and all that in this sector.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ugo. So, Bello, quickly, jump in 30 seconds, your view on this conversation around barriers to entry and where the industry is at the moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll pick up from where Ugo and Chike have started. Yes, there is that challenge of low barrier to entry. However, I look at it from another perspective. There's been no real new innovation. I think the thinking has been more around signages and posters as against what out of home really is. So if you look at it of late, there's this innovation with lamp posts and this and that. There's room. The entry level, no matter how rich it is, will not stop the number of new entrants because it is also a profitable business. So I think the challenge is for practitioners and experts in this area to look at more innovative ways, because out of home is really large. It's really large. There's opportunity in street furniture, there's opportunity in concert, there's opportunity in construction. So those are these we also have to explore. But in terms of barrier to entry, of course it is there. The only way to beat that barrier is to up the game with innovation. My thoughts on this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bello. So I think this is a very tempting conversation, and I think we just touched a bit of the iceberg in previous conversations. So I think, Kingsley, just to take note, we need to really have time to discuss this issue around entry, the practice generally in the industry in future occasions. So today we just need to a little bit. Let me focus on the conversations we have for today. So we are talking out of home behavior of consumers when out of home. So before we do that, it will be very important for us to first of all try to understand by ourselves what are the roles of out of home within the consumer journey. So I hear conversations when people say out of home is basically a reminder medium, or that out of home is a channel you fall back to when you necessarily just want to drive impact. So I want to hear opinions of you from your own point of view as people who have been around for a very long time. So I'll start with Chike. Chike, what do you think about the roles of out of home? What roles do we think out of home plays in the entire consumer journey? The most critical roles, I want to say.
Okay, thank you, Nonso, for the question. However, I think that when we start from that point of view, we've run the risk of straitjacketing platforms. I think typically what we should, try to do as strategists is to understand the consumer. And when you understand the consumer, you will understand what the behaviors of the consumer is and how to reach them and influence their decision. So if you understand the consumer out of home, you will realize that the consumer out of home is the most valuable audience, consumer segment. Now, why do I say this? I say this because a consumer out of home is an economically active consumer. So that means that when they are out of home is where they spend a lot of money. And when they spend money is where they are able to add value to the brand. So with this framework, you will begin to ask yourself, how do I integrate, not out of home now, but location marketing into my overall strategy in such that I am able to induce the kind of behavior that I want, people to behave towards my brand out of home. So this goes against the grains of what you typically have from your classic media planning exercise, which tells you that out of home is a reminder medium and starts off it from the moment of truth point of view, which is retail. And this is basically speaking the language of integration of sales and marketing as a functional element in organizations. So if we start thinking about out of home from the end and start to move it forward. So if we think about out of home from the end point, what do we want people to do? We want people to buy our product. We want people to do what we want them to do. how do we now begin to think of out of home? And like Bello pointed out of home is not billboard. And when we start to have restrictive conversations about out of home being billboards, we are limiting the growth and the expansion and the innovation in the industry. So I think that the best thing to do is to really, really understand what you need the consumer to do out of home and plan your out of home executions to that, as opposed to thinking about out of home from a media specific only point of view. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chike. So very valid point there. So I think a lot of people listening will understand where Chike is coming from, and which is really insightful. We currently treat out of home as a bigger channel, so to say, and then the boxes first stage. So coming back to conversations we've had earlier. So Ugo, just going quickly, Chike just mentioned that the out of home consumer is an economically active consumer, so to say, so they spend more of money when out of home. In your point of view, how do you think we can leverage this opportunity of the consumer being economically very active when they're out of home? How do you think we can leverage beyond what we currently do on just billboards and all of that?
I think first we need to consider the keywords of this conversation. We have change out of home, and we also have consumer and behavior. So when we look at it from that perspective, we should be asking, what is change? What is changing? Before we even think about it being economically viable or not. Of course, this change for me would be regarded as a consistent and an unending oscillation in terms of a variation between what happens in the media, the attitude or behavior of the consumer, and the social system or environment. While the out of home itself, going by what Chike just said, is not just billboard, but any form of conspicuous advertising, usually in visual form, found outside of the home, which of course the audience on the move cannot zap, discard, or tune away. Today, given the level of penetration of the internet, out of home, I can say, is the only enabler for online advertising while the audience is on the move. Because if you look at traditional, you can say reminder medium, but it's not just a reminder medium. It's actually an enabler if you use it the right way. This is because out of home oftentimes cultivates in the mind of the consumer the stimuli to further carry out targeted search on the brand while on the move. So if you ask me, the person who is willing to target a research or carry out a research on a brand must have something to do with that brand. Of course, it could be economical, it could be social, it could also be to just acquire more knowledge about that brand. Overall, if I'm the one investing the money, my objective is actually to make sales. So outside of impressions, clicking away and all that, I think I want to see the bottom line if I'm the marketing director. So of course, if you're planning out of home, the most important aspect of the factors you must consider as the planner is how the advertising you're putting out will translate into sales. So if you do a proper planning, of course, your primary target or your primary target audience must be the person who has the disposable or discretionary income to make a purchase. Otherwise, you're just wasting your investment. I think I should be looking at it from that point, doing the right thing by reaching out to those who have what it takes in terms of finance to make a purchase of the brand that I have put out in any form of outdoor medium.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ugo. So I'll just go straight to Bello. So I've heard Chike, I've heard Ugo. So Bello, I believe you're the man as the lead trade marketer, like I said. So you're the man on the streets most often than every other person. What would be your opinion, or what would be your view, coming from the backdrop of what Chike and Ugo have said about out of home being not just a reminder medium, but more like an enabler? How have you seen this more like play up in your trade marketing activities?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chike and Ugo. You made a very important point. Number one, it is not only an enabler. Actually, outdoor or out of home is where you have the legality of your product displayed. It is not just a reminder media. It is the media when you're launching a new product that is tangible. People want to see that product. They want to believe it exists. They want to know who brings it. Where do you get that from? It's out of home media. That's the reason why you do posters. That's why you do this. That's why it is important that people, especially classic marketers, understand that outdoor media is not a reminder media. It's not the backup media. It is the media. It brings believability. That's high frequency. It goes beyond just being a media. It becomes a landmark. I know a lot of us remember when Airtel was on that board there, and when you're on Chatwin Bridge, they ask you, have you gotten to the Airtel board? It becomes a landmark. People remember. It is not just a recall thing. It's elite. If you're coming, you can't miss it. So these classic marketers, media people at the advocacy of saying outdoor media is a reminder media, it applies to a certain brand. It doesn't apply in FMCG. FMCG, that's your lead media. Out of home is your lead media. That's where the interaction happens, out of home. 80% of the business transactions happen out of home. Consumption happens 80% out of home. The volumes are driven out of home. So it makes nonsense of this idea that out of home media is support media, because again, the same thing we say, we tend to think that out of home is just billboards, posters, and street furniture. It goes beyond that. A lot of interactions, even in present day businesses, when you look at AI and stuff, where are they deployed? Out of home, where marketplace, that's where the convergence happens. That's where the interaction happens. And we're visually driven. So it is what you see. It's not what you hear. It's what you see too. That raises your interest. So yes, I am an advocate of saying out of home is not a support media. It is the media, especially for FMCG. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bello. Thank you, Chike. Thank you. So I'd like to go back straight out to Chike on this conversation around out of home. So there seems to be a lot of misconception, or maybe it's a training issue where a lot of people who practice out of home currently see out of home as just a billboard versus seeing it from a holistic touch point of view. So the question would be, can we attribute this misconception to how out of home is currently being used in the market, where when we say, give me an out of home plan, the next thing that comes to the planner's mind is just to bring billboards into the conversation? Does this have a correlation to this belief that I think has stuck in the minds of virtually everybody? Chike, wants to hear your opinion, sir.
Okay, so out of home has suffered a bad rap in terms of perception and from a planning point of view. So typically what happens is that the guys that do out of home planning and implementation and strategy typically are not in the room when big strategic advertising decisions are being made. So you have a creative agency that comes to do awesome creative implementations and the rest, and say to the client that out of home is just to cascade what is done on press or a part of the TVC to out of home medium. Okay. And when you start to have that conversation from that point of view, out of home will become just a channel of disseminating information, and it turns into a reminder medium. So people like Kingsley will now get a brief which says, find me unipolls so that I can put this material on top. Now, that is not the conversation we should be having. The conversation we should be having, like Bello rightly mentioned, is who am I talking to out of home and how can I get them? And we are in this era of accountability for media and media investment. And we need to ask ourselves, what does out of home mean? And how does out of home deliver results? Okay. You have clients that when they do out of home planning, it is around integration with trade marketing. And when you begin to do out of home integration with trade marketing, that is where you start to plan the consumer journey. And like Bello pointed out, your product on shelf is media. Okay. Your parasol in the open market is out of home media. Your merchandising and your merchandisers are media activities out of home. So how do we have out of home planners and strategists able to stand up in a room and they are able to chart end-to-end out of home plans and strategies that are attuned to what the brand does offline? That is on one side. On the other side is that we need to have conversations really about what out of home media does for brands. So out of home is that brand, is that medium that helps build credibility for your brand. So it's not just a reminder medium. I was having this conversation with a couple of guys as part of the Denso research program, and we were asking them questions. We said to them, when you see a brand out of home in big billboards, what impressions do you have? And typically people will say, when I see your brand out of home, it means that your brand is credible. It means that they are not hiding, as opposed to all these mushroom brands that do things on digital and you don't even know where to follow them. That is why you see a lot of fintech companies, people like Jumia, people like Bolt, people like Glovo, coming to do out of home. Even Google does out of home. Why do they? They do all those out of home because out of home has that ability to give credibility to your brand. And you can't take away the impact of credibility on your brand. The consumer has a lot of choices. The choices comes to them in various formats and in various ways, and they only buy the things that they trust. And out of home, of course, in addition to mediums like TV, helps in building that credibility for your brand.
Thank you very much, Chike. Yeah, I don't know if Ugo has anything to build on, or Bello, or any of you can just jump in before we move into the next conversation. Ugo, baby.
Yeah, Chike actually pointed out something very important, and that has to do with collaborative planning. Oftentimes, out of home has remained what it is because everything is hush-hush until the launch date. The media owner is not in that loop. Oftentimes, even the research agency is not in that loop. So it's a conversation that may even include the key account handler in the advertiser side. May not necessarily know what is going on. So until there is a collective and collaborative engagement of stakeholders in out of home at the point of strategy, not necessarily at the point of implementation when the damage is done, then that perception that out of home is a reminder medium is just there, will remain. However, if, for instance, starting with research, you're able to understand the market, you're able to understand the consumer, you're able to understand the things that will motivate the consumer, not just on the personal level, but cultural, economic, then you begin to think of the message that is consistent to the consumer's cognitive needs, that will serve as gatekeeping force in order to gratify the knowledge gap which of course, that is what out of home is supposed to serve. For instance, I don't need airtime to consume your message out of home. I don't. I don't need to be that educated to consume that message. Visually, I can understand it. If you are able to understand the consumer properly, you'll be able to design the message in such a way that whether you're online or not, whether you're on television or not, it can actually remain your core media channel for a brand launch. It is possible. It is doable if collaboratively and properly planned, not just rushing to the printer for implementation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ugo. It seems like you are in the last section we had, because this conversation around a gap between the client and the media partners who are the critical service providers for this out-of-home solution. There's a gap between the client and themselves. So I want to go to Bello to understand. Bello, do you think the kind of collaboration Ugo has mentioned would help us solve this, would I say, lacuna or a gap I see between briefing and implementation? So media partners just wait for materials to come to post on billboards. Do you think if we have a system where there's a synergy between the client's brief funneling down to the media partners at the point of briefing and strategy, do you think this would help solve some of these challenges we have in out-of-home?
Absolutely.
I can't seem to hear Bello.
I've seen what
I think he's having some. I think Bello is having some network challenge. So well, maybe we'll have that conversation later on. However, Bello, are you still talking?
Sorry. Yeah. It cut me off.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry, I got distracted a bit. I apologize. I've seen this work in South Africa. I've seen it work in the UK, where all parties involved get the same briefing, so we can all work with a single synergy, and there's no confusion about it. You bring your expertise, I bring my expertise, and then we put it together, and then in the long run, everybody gets the same benefit, as against what we have here, where the media planner is thinking is different, the guy in out of home is thinking different, he's briefed differently. I'll tell you, in any case where you have three different briefs cascading, there'll be a disjoint. You know, by the time it leaves point A to point B, there'll be a disjoint point. So if we have a synergy where at the point of briefing, the client, the planner, the strategist, the outdoor guy, everybody sits down together, and there'll be a better understanding of what best to deliver for the brand, as against waiting for one person to brief, the second person will brief the third person. I mean, Ugo mentioned that too, that there are certain things that the long chain of command will cause a diffusion of the entire strategy. By the time it goes from this end to that end, no, let's have a single briefing. Don't forget, we're all experts in our field. The guy who is an expert in electronic media may not necessarily be the expert in out of home. So why are we cutting out opportunities for others to show their expertise? I think there was some opening, there was some transparency, there was some involvement and engagement of all parties to deliver for the brand. We should not just limit ourselves to the way we are running now, where the silos. Those gaps are the lacunas you're talking about, from briefing to execution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions so far. I want to say for the people who are listening, if you have your questions, you can quickly type them into the chat box, and I would make well to ask our discussants. So what I hear from the conversation so far is that there needs to be a clarion call. We need to try to close that gap between briefing and execution. So I think so everybody thinks on the call that if we are able to carry everybody along from point of briefing to execution, some of the gaps we see, some of the stereotypes which are wrong about out of home, we should be able to solve them doing that. So let's move on quickly into the out of home, the changing behavior of the consumer. So one thing that that stands out very strongly, not just in Nigeria but globally, is the fact that digital has grown really, really strong. I think someone already mentioned it in the earlier conversations. Digital has become more like how would I say, in some podcasts, people say it's a distraction, especially with COVID coming in. We've seen the boom in e-commerce. We've seen the boom in video conferencing apps. We've seen the boom in people even attend church programs from their phones anymore. So it's a huge competition, as people say. People try to see it as a competition. Even people would watch football matches on their phones. So the big question that boils down to us is this: is this boom in digital a threat or an opportunity for out of home? So perhaps I will not be talking about out of home and digital integration at this point. So I'll start from Ugo. Ugo, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Nonso. I don't see any medium cannibalizing the other if properly managed. Rather, I will see each supporting the other. And why it has become a case of I want to do online and I want to move budget from activation. COVID, with all due respect, of course, we know how it affected activation and activities out of home. Of course, at that point, you don't really need such medium. However, in a normal time, there is need for brand handlers to consider a mix that works for the brand. And there's no way you can make an effective and efficient consideration without first understanding the consumer and his or her changing behavior. And that is why I said earlier that lack of interaction, proper interaction or consistent interaction between the brand handlers, the agencies, and the market, which of course is the consumer. That lack of that interaction is in itself a problem to the planners. For instance, I know that there are people who are out of home strategists in various agencies who don't even know where their bots are located, who don't know where the market is, even in their own domain. There are people who move from home to the office and office to home, not because they don't want to show their interest or extend their efforts to the open market to understand the consumer or to have an interaction with the consumer, but because the workload in itself will not allow them to step out. So I'm trying to say that the relationship between different medium need to be aligned, analyzed, to the extent that the consumer is just the focal discussing point. And it's at that point you begin to understand why you need online and not out of home or television or any other medium. But I'm not sure that is being done before the brief is actually written. Oftentimes, brand handlers decide to say, I want to do television. When I was in Airtel, for instance, I doubt if there are, with all due respect to the account handlers, account managers, and brand owners, I'm not sure all of them or most of them have that time to look at research information that is coming, for instance, from Millward Brown on usage, most often used brand, consumption, time of consumption, and different other parameters that the research information has provided for us to exploit. And how do you now arrive at out of home or radio or any other medium? So strategy should actually, media strategy should actually precede creative strategy. That is what I think. Because you don't finish your radio, finish your television, you don't have any option. Then you start asking for media strategy to support what you've planned, what you've created. It should actually be from research. You do your research, you understand the consumer properly, not just about the personal in terms of age, income, and all. No, the social part of the consumer is very vital, because today is actually the social part that drives the personal part, because people work in reference groups other than individuals. So how your reference group influence your consumption behavior, influences your lifestyle, isn't as more important as you sitting down telling me that because I'm in this particular age bracket and I have this level of income, therefore I will consume this medium, I will consume this brand. No, I have people that I look up to. I want to be like them. I want to act like them. I want acceptance from them. The way they act, the way they consume, the way they behave also rubs off on what I do, on how I behave. So generally speaking, I think each medium needs to be reviewed at the onset to be able to understand how you're going to play at the point of execution, not the other way around. Media should drive creativity. Then creativity, of course, will be a collective decision in terms of messaging, designs, color, and the philosophy of the brand, in order for you to effectively communicate to the consumer and, of course, win that consumer over at the end of the day in form of patronage.
Well, thank you very much, Ugo. So, Chike, I will come to you at this point. I know you have very strong opinions around this conversation. The consumer's preference for digital is becoming increasing, undoubtedly. We can argue that the consumer is continually tilting towards digital media as a preference. Do you see this as a distraction for out of home when it relates tie back to the consumer? Or do you think there's a way we can easily integrate out of home and digital? Like we just mentioned, that we need to try a way to find a middle ground or an overlay of these media channels to triangulate the consumer. So what is your take on this conversation around out of home and digital distraction for the consumer?
Okay, Chinonso, thank you very much. So background, we've been talking about the consumer from a conceptual point of view. It's important that we begin to talk about the consumer like they exist. Okay, who are they, what do they do, and the rest, so that we can get to the meat of the conversations that we are having. So first of all, the average consumer is a social being. Okay, and this means that we as individuals and people find meaning and expression through our relationship with people and with the larger world. So that means that if you want to deprive a human being if you want to punish a human being, you send them to jail, you lock them up. Okay. And that means that if you're locking them up, you are removing their ability to live in the out of home world. Okay. That's the first thing. Monso, please. You raised your hand.
No, I didn't. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the second bit is this. What influences the consumer when they are out of home? So presently, there are 4 key broad influences around consumers when they are out of home. The first thing is technology, okay, which is around the conversations that you're having around mobile, okay? Before mobile telephony became, standardized and everybody had mobile phones, you used to have a much more attentive audience to billboard advertising when they're on the road. Right now, when you are stuck in traffic or when you're moving and you are just in traffic, you spend more time on your phone than you spend on looking at your environment. So that means that even though you're out of home, stuck in traffic, it doesn't mean that you're consuming out of home medium, okay? Because technology has followed you out of your home. You're listening to music on your phone, you're talking to people on your phone, you're chatting on your phone, and you are, generally browsing. The second bit is when you even get to locations, any location that has a Wi-Fi connection automatically changes consumer behavior in that location. Okay, that is why when you go to the malls or airports, people are still on their phones because you have free Wi-Fi and the rest. So that means that people are still outside, but they are engaging with our medium differently. The second changing dynamics that is affecting consumer behavior is urbanization. You're seeing more and more people leave their villages and move into towns and creating mega cities. The implication is that we are going to spend increasing number of time out of home. From the Google mobility data analysis shown for Lagos and some key African cities, we are seeing mobility figures back to pre-COVID levels. So traffic is increasing and people are spending increasing number of time in traffic. Okay, that is also affecting the consumer and out of home behavior. The third bit is physical infrastructure. Okay, you're beginning to have places like the mall almost everywhere. In the past, if you wanted to go to the mall, you will go to ICM or you will go to Palms. That means that you have, you travel, you go to Third Mainland Bridge and the rest. Right now, you have little malls everywhere. This means that you are having more self-sustaining communities and environments. So you have people that are trying to, so there's this new project they are talking about. It's called Lagos Talent City. Lagos Talent City is supposed to be like our Silicon Valley and the tech hub. So you're having the rise of people thinking of building self-serving communities that they don't need to even go out again. They get everything that they have in their community. That's also affecting out-of-home behavior. So you're likely going to see somebody that lives in Yaba and has no business going to, different parts of Lagos because everything that he has is centralized in his domain. So this is affecting travel time over long distances and the rest. So if you sum all of these things, you begin to understand that we need to have an integration between digital and mobile and out-of-home advertising, especially mobile. Now, the two most complementary platforms in terms of platform complements is out-of-home and mobile advertising. Okay, research has shown that people are likely going to search for brands on their mobile phone that they see on billboards. Okay, geofencing as a strategy is what has helped brands drive people to retail. So you have a trade marketing strategy and you're able to get people within 5 kilometers radius of bars and eateries to visit your outlet. That is using mobile and integrating it with out of home. If you have an experiential activity, you're able to use your mobile, send people SMS, prompt people when they enter a radius to visit the activations points. If you're also doing a big campaign that you need people to share, you can tell them when they are out using their mobile phones also to capture pictures of billboard, transit advertising, share and win. So there's a lot of, instead of seeing it as something that disrupts, we should see it as something that complements. Thank you.
So, sorry, Nelson.
Yeah, Ugo, you can go ahead. I think you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand. I'm just trying to make few points as regards to some of the things Chike said. The out of home in itself right now is becoming the most demanding aspect of media planning because of the level of data mining that will be required for you to actually achieve the level of success you expect. It's no longer a case of a mix. with the coming on board of Integrated Channel, I think Interactive Channel Limited, ICL, one of the data mining companies, it is becoming very important that people begin to think of how the consumer live his or her life, not necessarily on television, because right now a lot of investment online, especially on mobile advertising, is being wasted. Data may support my proposition on this, my feedback to this effect, because a lot of times you may see me online, you may see me with my phone, fiddling with my phone, you may not know what I'm doing. Some people are addicted to WhatsApp status. Some people are addicted to Instagram. We Twitter back. Some people are there on Twitter. Some people do basically Facebook. Some may not even do anything. They're just searching. They're just moving from one point to another, or they're chatting with their friends and they're smiling. So it's difficult for you to know what an individual is doing with his or her phone at any point in time. But it's very easy for a media planner to feel that, oh, a lot of people are online. Yes, a lot of people are online doing what? That is the question. And that is where data mining, if we have a typical consumer for a particular brand, it will take you days to actually analyze that consumer, Monday to Sunday, time, day part by day part, location by location, for you to now say this is exactly what this consumer predominantly do with his or her time. So I'm raising this point because oftentimes agencies seem to assign their weakest to out of home because they feel it's a mix of Unipo, LED, lampposts, and that is it. No, it's changing. If you're unable to integrate, especially out of home, with other media, then you are not yet a media planner. Time has come when people need to understand the consumer behavior and, in fact, apply it in the planning without necessarily depending on AMPs or diaries, which, of course, as important as they are, as relevant as they are becoming obsolete. That is my point.
Chinonso, you're on mute. Chinonso, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was muted. So I was, it feels like Ugo was in my mind because I was trying to, the next question I was going to ask Bello was around the state of data when it comes to out of home. So it feels to me like what we currently do is just tabletop out of home planning without necessarily backing up with any kind of data. So I want to hear from Bello. What do you think the industry can do to properly optimize data usage when planning out of home so that it doesn't seem like a tabletop kind of thing of placing unipos and lampos here and there? What is the place of data in out of home planning as regards the consumer? Because now we're trying to focus on the consumer and the consumer behavior is changing by the day. The consumer on Monday is not the same on Friday. So my question to Bello is, what is the place of data in properly understanding this consumer changing behavior and also optimizing this? Bello.
Thank you, Nonso. First of all, I want to go back to your earlier question about the digital platform and out of home. And the truth is, the digital platform will never replace TV, or it only complements. There's no media that cannibalizes any other one, like Ugo rightly said. It's a matter of how it is being used. Now, one of the reasons why the digital platform appears to be doing very well is because of data. There's this thing about data with digital platforms. Now, unless and until we have a serious investment in data for out of home in Nigeria, it will be a waste of time to always remain a tabletop thing and an assumption, because we don't know for sure. For instance, now, one interesting place is like the Ikeda shopping mall. Let me use that as an example, where consumers converge. How many come there? Do we have that kind of data? Is it open? I hear a lot of rush about traffic on 10 Mainland Bridge. Really? How many people on 10 Mainland Bridge? do we have that full data, or is an assumption too? So the credibility of data is what determines how effective that media becomes. Now, unless and until there's a serious investment in getting the data, and really the right kind of data, followed by exact analysis, good analysis on it, and interpretation, out of home will still remain a desktop thing. That's just the bottom truth. We just do the rule of the thumb. We assume it is like that, and we work on that. And it affects the credibility of the out-of-home media itself. Unlike digital, they can tell you this and that and that and that at the click of a button. So yes, there is a need. I have heard some of my friends talking about all this measurement and stuff. Until this is come on board, the out-of-home media strategy, planning, implementation will still be based on the rule of thumb. Basically, that's how I see it.
Nonso, can I say something, please? You're still on mute.
Go ahead, Chike, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So I had a bit of opinion about this. So I think that the best thing that has happened to out of home is mobile phones and digital media. Okay, and I will give this illustrations and examples. Okay, for the first time, because of mobile telephony, we are able to understand traffic pattern and traffic flow using Google Analytics. Okay, before now, you can't predict typical traffic on Third Mainland Bridge. Right now, using Google Analytics, you're able to chart, the typical traffic patterns. You might not be able to chart the number, but you're able to chart periods of the day, times of the day, you have congestion on Third Mainland Bridge. That's one. Second is that for places like the mall, it helps you know typical dwell time in these locations. So if you're saying to somebody that I'm going to put your ad in ICM, and the conversation becomes, what is the dwell time on ICM? With mobile telephones, you're able to know that. Another thing that mobile and digital has also done for us is that it helps us understand people's behavior when they are in locations. So I think that the advent of digital advertising, especially mobile, has helped out of home a lot in terms of provision of data, because our location data is on all the time, and we are giving out location insights, location analytics. The job for us as planners is to get these disparate data, analyze them, and make sense of them. So for example, if you are doing planning for a beer brand, and you are searching you want to get people to drink, you're able to, with mobile data, telephony, know the areas that the people spend more time in. Because if you go to Google search and they use the platform, it tells you that this bar, people spend 3 hours, 30 minutes in the bar. That gives you an idea in terms of how to target and how to engage them. So I think that mobile and digital has made out of home as a medium better. Our job is to harness the insights and the information that is available to be able to make sense in terms of planning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chike. So before you quickly run out, I want to also throw this question back to you. So I believe that you're an evangelist of data in the market, and you're one of the people I know at the vanguard of planning with data. I've worked with you a couple of times, so I know this conversation. So I don't know, for the benefit of the planners and strategists and the media partners that we have in the house, are there pointers as to where, just basically, maybe not something very exhaustive, can you just give us a pointer of the kind of data, and then where to stop? We know we don't have this data everywhere now, but I know you have a way of around data. So can you point us to some directions as to what kind of data and where, so that for the benefit of who on the call?
Okay, Chinonso, thank you. So good question. So the first data set you can look at, I will also drop it on the platform, is check for Google mobility data. Google mobility data will tell you the places people visit frequently in a city or in towns. So you see the times that people spend at home, the time that they spend in the office, the time they spend in park, the time they spend, in malls and the rest. You can find it there. The second thing that you can also find is if you go to Google Traffic, you're able to see live traffic data, okay, which is what basically your Google map uses to direct you to these different routes. However, when you open it on your desktop or your laptop, you're able to see typical traffic for different days of the week. Okay, that is one. That is second. When you now go to malls, for example, it tells you how long people spend at the mall. So if you check for ICM and you will see, information around. It's also on Google. And you can also check that information on bus stops and parks. Now, when you have this information, it helps you begin to make a sense and place a premium and value of your assets. So, for example, places that have high traffic clusters are your rich platforms, because there's a lot of traffic there. You have the ability to reach a lot more people. Where people spend more time in are your engagement platforms, engagement channels. Now, when you overlay this information with panel data is now research to understand psychographics. What it now tries to tell you is how people feel when they're in different locations. Of course, how we feel on Monday is different from how we feel on Sunday. Even though we are in the same location, we are feeling differently. So it affects how we are able to now use medium, especially for things like digital billboards and the kind of messaging that we put for different days and different times of the day. So for me, it is almost counterproductive that you're selling beer advertising, 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And while it is 4 p.m., 5 p.m. on Friday and on Saturday, your impressions are not heavy on digital out of home from a rotation point of view. So these are some of the places that we can go to get data. Of course, at Dentsu, we have proprietary data that we also take advantage of, which I will not delve into on this session. I hope that answers your question, Nonso. Hello? Nonso, you're on mute.
Yeah, Chike, yeah. So thank you very much. I think that was really insightful. And then for the benefit of people who are on the call, who currently plan, not just for out-of-home plans and strategies, for also media partners. So providing solutions will require a little bit of data. Thank you very much, Chike. Very insightful. So I'll go to you, Bello, briefly. Like I said, you're the man on the street. There's a popular saying somewhere that people might forget what you say to them, but you never or hardly forget how you make them feel. So where am I going? I'm going to experience versus traditional out-of-home advertising. What do you think that we need to, as an industry, necessarily try to, as much as we can, complement the regular traditional things we do currently with experience for the consumer? Experience and out-of-home, just weighing them side by side each other. Below your opinion. I'm not sure Bello heard me. Okay, so I'll let me quickly move to Ugo. If Bello is not available, Ugo, I was trying to mention the balance between regular out-of-home, traditional out-of-home, I would like to call it, and experience as it is. Where do you think we can find the balance between just passing messages to the consumer versus creating experiences, lasting experiences for them? Because we know the consumer attention is really, really fickle and waits very quickly. Do you think, in your opinion, if we create more experiences versus doing more traditional things, that we'll be able to catch the consumer even as their behavior changes rapidly?
Yeah, thank you, Nonso. Talking about experience is quite relative. Experience is also abstract, but in its nature, it could actually be something that have a very long span on the mind of the consumer, though oftentimes unconscious. But let me start with out of home itself before we go to proper experience that is not out of home, that is not out of home medium, but out of home. Oftentimes, we rush into creating messages for billboards, and these messages we create end up being still images most of the time. I can say 60% of the time is still images, is not interactive. But remember that cost is a factor when you want to actually have a proper experience on out of home as a medium. Cost is a factor. So how many people have that ability to invest in an interactive platform, be it mobile or location based? Like we're talking about malls and locations and all that. There could be a way where out of home is designed in such a way that it becomes an interactive platform between the consumer and the brand. And the consumer could actually be rewarded for engaging the brand at that level. And it could have a very spiral effect on the brand in terms of awareness, recall, and future patronage or purchase. However, this very limitation in itself shouldn't be where we should dwell right now. Experiences have been created in different ways before now by brands using events. People who understand how brands work, especially when it has to do with experience, brand experience, creating brand experience, we tell you that it is not just out of home. It's a consistent, continuous kind of engagement of the consumer. And that is why when you're planning experience, you don't plan experience using one medium. In fact, PR is very key. We're not talking about PR, especially in agencies, but PR is very key because that is when you see people engage in emotional expression of their relationship with the brand and the experience, be it pre-event or post-event. And out of home could be used to amplify such experiences or feedback from the consumer. But unfortunately, what we usually get is you do the noise, you hide the event, maybe on radio or television, you have one message. The best you can do is to have one hype, and it ends with, the unveil, and that ends the game. No. Out of home today should be a continuous kind of refreshment of messaging to the consumer, be it online or offline. Life in itself is more offline than online, irrespective of what digital has brought to us or what technology in terms of mobile telephony has brought to us. So, looking at experiences, I would rather say that integration of different media platforms that support an event, out of home event, is the best approach to leveraging experiences of consumers, be it offline or online.
Thank you. I want to hear your opinion around creating lasting experience for the consumer versus just communicating to them using the available out-of-home channels to us. Your opinion?
Okay, thank you. So you can totally divorce experiential marketing from out of home is an integral part of out of home. However, you have to look at what the objective of the campaign or what the client is trying to achieve is. So if you want to create experiences, you have to create experiences in locations, okay? And that is where you find consumers clustering. You create experiences that will make them gravitate towards your brand. If you want to reach people generally, broadly, you reach them around your key traffic routes and your key traffic points. However, you need to have an integrated consumer out-of-home strategy to be able to engage them. Reaching consumers is not enough, okay? Getting them to experience the brand in a curated environment is also very, very important, because we know that consumers are likely going to talk about what they see and experience, which is to your point, Nonso. So if you have an out-of-home strategy that is very, very well integrated with experiential and trade marketing, then you have a winning plan, okay? I am a proponent that out-of-home planners should spend more time with trade, experiential, and salespeople, as opposed to spending more time with TV and radio planners. Out-of-home people should spend more time with digital, especially mobile advertising people, trade marketing, experiential, and sales people, as opposed to spending more time with radio and TV planners, because our whole ecosystem is around, these key functional competencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chike. I don't know if Bello can hear me now. Bello, if you can hear me, just your take on the consumer changing behavior, experience, and out of home. Any take? Hello, Bello. Okay, so I think we've lost Bello, so we'll move on quickly.
Hello. So sorry.
Okay.
I heard the conversation about experiential and out of home. As a matter of fact, experiential is 100% out of home. Experiential talks about interacting with the brand, not only in your house, but also outside. In most times, actually, experiential happens in the marketplace, at the convergent points, at the interaction points. So it's difficult to remove experiential marketing from out of home, because they are very, very intertwined. That's a fact. And then now, I still just want to go back 2 steps away. I wanted to comment at that time, but Ugo was talking. These things about measurement, these things about execution, they all come back to a simple fact that if we allow media lead creativity, it will be much more easier, because you know exactly what communication you're pushing, to what channel, at what time, what kind of people. So most of these things we have in is because there's a disconnect between what we are saying and to whom we're saying at what time. It's something that over time I'm very sure we'll come over it, because there's a change when you see what is happening in current communication, where a communication house is 360 degrees. So I think with the current trend that is happening with out-of-home communication, you get to see more 360-degree plans and executions where agencies are now reverting back to having everything in-house, as against independent everything, media independent. Now we're seeing people coming together and having a bigger collab. So my view on this is we cannot take one away from the other, all complement into one full thing. So if you work it around having that complement work, as against isolating each one and say, this is what we do, this is what it, no. I think we should start looking at having a complemented approach to the business. Out of home, inside the house, no. There should be that complement, so that there's a single direction everybody's working towards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bello. So rounding up quickly, so something that concerns especially all of us, and we're talking about consumer behavior and how rapidly it will change in the coming 12 months or thereabouts in Nigeria. the elections are coming. We know how erratic it can be. You post a billboard in the morning for a client, APC blanks in the afternoon, PDP blanks it at night. All the bridges are all covered with posters. And then tying this back to the consumer, we expect and anticipate that the consumer in the coming 12 months will be completely distracted by this political noise, political campaigning, electioneering here and there. Interests will change. People will start asking questions as to who and who is contesting and all of that. So in all of this, we see the consumer being completely cluttered in the next 12 months. As marketing and media strategists or consultants, I would like to start from Chike. How do you think the industry as a whole what strategic advice can you give the industry as a way of navigating this clutter and also still maintaining relevance to the consumer whose preferences will change in the next 12 months? Chike?
No, so that's a difficult question. So let me put my sister so I can laugh properly. I'll attempt to to answer your question. So AFCON is ongoing right now. Okay, anything that is not AFCON related will go to take second fiddle, play second fiddle. World Cup will come, and when World Cup is happening, it will be the same. Big Brother will come. When Big Brother is happening, it will be the same. So it is about, like you mentioned, about interest, consumer interest, and what is important to them, from a consumer point of view. As a brand, what you need to do is to have a clear campaign calendar that takes into cognizance, these times and durations and seasons. You can't stop the political party from hijacking your board. The governor of the state will blank out all the boards that you have and put his own posters there. You can't take him to court. If you do, it becomes difficult for you. So for us as planners, what we do is to have a plan which is dynamic, which understands the season and the circumstances we are in, and we engage accordingly. And this is where we will now start to have media out-of-home agnostic solutions. So if our billboards are being taken over, that is why it's very important that we have conversations beyond billboards. If our billboards are being taken over, what else are we going to do in retail? What else are we going to do in trade marketing? What else are we going to do at the bars? Because they can't take over billboards and take over bars. Okay. So what are we going to do on mobile? Because we are targeting people out of home. And when you're targeting people out of home, it mustn't be billboards. So we need to be smart in our planning and move around things a bit. So if we need to tighten up our retail merchandising, deployment and executions, and tighten up with our mobile, and have monitoring systems to ensure that wastages that we have with them taking off our boards, the client also gets the benefit of it. That would be the way to go, if you ask me. But you've asked me a very difficult question.
I know it was difficult, that's why I said it for the last. So Ugo, you've heard Chike, he's talking about being agile. That's what I hear. I hear him saying we need to be agile and also think about out of home beyond billboards, which takes us back to where we are coming from. So what's your take on this conversation around being agile when the landscape and the consumer changes?
Yeah, thanks, Chinonso. I don't think that any state governor will actually hijack your billboards if you've actually planned, scheduled, and have a substantive contract with the media owner or the billboard owner during elections. Because we all know what happens during elections. We also know that outside of that awareness created on the billboard, a lot of other people do. I mean, the political parties depend more on rallies, and these rallies are almost every week, and they are televised oftentimes live. Outside of live television or live broadcast, they also have the right to strategic small sheetages, like the standing portrait boards that you see during events in Lagos. They have their political parties and representatives doing their consultations at grassroots for elections. So what I would say is, during the election period, tidy up your plans. Like Chike said, have your schedule, your campaign schedule, implement ahead, your strategic platforms. Make sure you have contracts on them. Nobody will take them over. But that aside, I think messaging is another thing, and is one part of out of home. In fact, the most important part of out of home that is seriously neglected. During elections, if messaging is right, leave whoever, nobody will climb your unipole to paste posters. It's only small sheetages. At that time, you can drop your small sheetages and plan with large format and plan digital. Increase the weighting of your space ownership on strategic routes, and you still achieve what you want to achieve using out of home. Overall, I think it's about being proactive and pragmatic in terms of planning, in terms of media owners' engagement, be it television, out of home, or otherwise. The cluster and clutter that will be experienced will still be there, but it will not take away anything from any forward-thinking brand.
Thank you very much. Bill, I'll just go straight to you before we round up.
I wanted to talk now. I wanted to raise my hand and say, you see, sometimes we often forget that the consumer is not dumb, is cool. And in every election year, I tell you, the consumer, we put in quote, is the antagonist of all the activities. Is in the thick of it all. Now it remains the challenge of the people operating out of home to understand that there's opportunity. There's plenty of opportunity. The question is, what are you doing to take advantage of the opportunity? How quick are you to respond to the clutter? How clear edge? How fantastic, like Ugo said, how clear is your messaging? How beautiful is your presentation? The challenge will always remain there. There will be that clutter at that period of time, because out of home, like I said, is one. Is for me. I keep repeating. It's not a reminder media. It is a media on its own. I mean, it has now. A lot of things happen outdoor. Posters will come up, boards will come up, furniture will come up, everything will come up. Question is, how are you taking advantage of it as an outdoor practitioner, home practitioner? What are you doing? What is your plan to mitigate? There are certain things that are out of your control. External things like the government, those things are out of your control. But how quick are you prepared to replenish? How quick are you to have a new idea to keep you relevant up there? Now, that's a challenge. For me, it's a challenge for those of us in the business to say, okay, what are we doing to take advantage of this opportunity? But every election year, I tell you, it's an interesting year for out of home. It's an interesting year for out of home. Things happen out of home. The campaigns happen out of home. The arguments and everything happens out of home. So it's an opportunity for us. We see it as an opportunity, but also look at it as a way, what do we do to take advantage of this opportunity? We prepare for it and accept it as it's a challenge for us to do better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I wish we had more time to continue the discussion, but I think we have to be rounding up now. But before I let you go, it's not easy to have a kind of experience from the three of you in the house. So just outside the consumer changing behavior, the out-of-home landscape, what word of advice or encouragement, or it might be an admonishment to the relatively younger practitioners, be it from the client side, the agency system, the service suppliers, the media partners, and all of that. What word of advice, what of the critical word of advice do you have for them from your experience? I'll start with Chike.
Okay, so my word of not more like encouragement will be to realize that what you do counts. Okay, I see a lot of people that work in the out of home space think that what they do is to carry materials and just post materials and get it done with. It affects how the job is seen. It affects how you are priced, and it affects how your organization values you. You need to elevate what you do from a strategic level and start to have strategic media communications and conversations. You need to understand how data helps you be a better planner and how data helps you sell, better for the out-of-home vendors. We need to be more data-led. I understand that we don't have a lot of data in the industry, but we need to, come to the party and not sell commodity. We sell commodity a lot in this space, and when you start to sell commodity, people will compete on price. When you start to sell value, people will begin to compete on outcomes. So we need to stop commoditizing the conversations that we are having, as a people and with other disciplines and clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chike. Nice words of encouragement. Ugo, anything from you?
Yeah, I want to take it off from where Chike stopped, but with this feedback. You will always commoditize when price is the key driver. I'm trying to turn it around now. When agencies see price as a key factor for taking decisions on out-of-home platform and ideas, then it will remain a commodity. So it has to be a collective wake-up call for both the advertiser, the agency, and the media owner. However, my advice to the industry is that right from strategy to implementation, out-of-home must serve as an enabler, a key driving media channel to help brand understanding. You should not stop at reminding the consumer of what a brand or service can offer, but proceed to promote the essence of the brand by acting as the catalyst that amplifies sales and increased consumption. Dear friends, this can only be achieved if brands can upscale understanding through simple, straightforward messaging. And these messages should not be wallpapers because of budget. They must be refreshed. If they are digital, they must be interactive, they must be engaging. Say more about what the brand stands for, how the consumer can benefit from the brand, instead of fighting competition. Every brand is unique. Find out what makes that brand unique. Tell the world about it. And at intervals, try and build brand love through engagement and interactions out of home using events and experientials. Then you can see upsurge in sales and consumption. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ugo. Bello, any last words?
Yeah, and thank you very much. Ugo, thank you for that last part of your statement about people understanding the brands and what they're selling. That helps you to also bring out very good strategies and then good plans that will help the brand in the long run and meet the right consumers. In my experience, I've seen a lot of people who are strategists who don't really understand the brand, not only on the agency side, even on the client side. I've had colleagues who don't understand what we're really selling. So there's a gap of knowledge and understanding between the planner, the brand owner, and the consumer, which we must narrow down. If you want to, for me, I would say that nobody has the total knowledge. Don't allow yourself to be shut down by anybody. If you have an idea that you think is convincing, research it and present it. There's nobody who has everything. There's no agency that is warehouse of every kind of knowledge. there's no client that has the best managers and stuff. It must be interactive. We must find a way or a platform where brand owners can have interaction with their strategists from the business side, so that there's an understanding of what the brief is. A lot of times we send brief to agencies that are stupid, that even us cannot achieve it. I would say we want results in 24 hours. It's not going to happen. So what I encourage is more interaction between the brand owners and the agencies, and having an understanding about what the brief is for the consumer. Better understanding, and that's why I still maintain it, that media is where we get a lot of insight about consumers. It should also lead creativity. Let's know who we're talking to. Where are we talking to them? Where are they? How do we? I think that interaction will help in driving our business further and even growing our people to understand the totality of the business and what is required. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to say a very special thank you to three of our discussants, Chike, Ugo, and Bello, for making our time out of your very, very busy calendars to be with us for an hour, 30 minutes. Thank you very much. We do not take it for granted. And for everybody who has taken time to join us, say thank you very much for your patience and for tolerating some of the network glitches here and there. Thank you very much. For myself and from the organizers, Kingsley mentioned their names earlier, Joel, Victor, Korede, Ladejobi, Yinka, Akintayo, Sherry, Babatunde. We really, really appreciate all of you. The next edition of this, I've been informed to let you know, will be coming up on the 18th of February, and the conversation will be around intelligence marketing. I think the team is still trying to flesh out some of the critical elements of that conversation, and then conversations will go out to you in due time. And also want to say a big congratulations to some of our winners. We did a predict and win conversation, and then I'm sure the organizers have reached out to you, to Ayomiko and Belola. Thank you for participating, everybody participated, and then we look forward to seeing you at the next edition. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your contributions. And that will be it for me. Kingsley, any last words before we go?
Okay, Nelson, thank you very much. I want to quickly appreciate everyone for joining. This live session is a successful one, and I want to thank you all for coming in and to joining this conversation. So, but like I always say, this is not just a platform for us to just have a chat and go. It's for us to take out learnings and go home and implement them so that we make a better industry. So the essence of the OH Academy project is to make sure we have built a knowledgeable out-of-home practitioners. And one of the platforms we are using is the Boardroom. And having said that, what it means is that we are trying to make sure we grow and deepen the integrity we have for the advertiser out-of-home practitioner. Yeah. So having said that, we have a training that is coming up soon. Chike already sets the tone already by saying that we all need to begin to look for how to get data for whatever we're doing. And what I want to say is that we have a couple of opportunities in terms of data and how we can do it better with out-of-home. And that is the project we are trying to run by next 2 months. And that's a March. On location intelligence workshop. So there we'll be discussing a couple of things around how you get your data from Google, Google location, places, nearby locations, and places, traffic, and forms of mapping. So this training is going to hold by March, 11th of March. We are preparing, and it's going to be a physical training, and it's going to be a practical training. People come with their laptops and will be able to analyze and see how we can plot and do and take advantage of Google. Google is a free platform that we have there. So just get yourself ready for March. While next month we are going to be treating location, we're going to be treating responsible out-of-home responsible marketing and out-of-home advertising. So thank you so much for joining. See you next session. That is 18th of February, which is next month. And for the winners, we thank you for participating, and we'll be getting across to you to share your gift and your reward for what you did. Thank you once more, and have a lovely weekend.